Hi, hello. This is topic number 15, the brain, which is also the last topic of the nervous system. Let's go directly to the human brain. Let's say the first page of my slides is the evolution of the brain. I just that page is only I wish I could make it more fun. It won't be that, and I don't think anything will be in the test. So the brain, there's a different way to how to call it, divide the brain into different parts. In this class, we take the way of categorizing the brain into four parts. We'll say later that any of those ways is not common all accepted. And actually, the brain itself is a whole continuous integrative structure. It's hard to really divide this part and that part. And so the way we take is like to say, we see the brain has four parts. The first, from basal to from lower to up. Last class we talked about this is spinal cord, and the spinal cord you have something going back at the end of the spinal cord. They call it brainstem. And then above the brainstem, there's this part. This is the diencephalon. Cephalon means the head. Diencephalon is through the head because overall here for this whole thing, this is the biggest part of the brain called the cerebellum. Cerebellum, cerebrum. And then here, there's a small part here. This kind of a bypass in the main traffic. This is called cerebellum. In Latin, this was the big brain, and this is the little brain. So next we'll talk one by one what's the function. Let's start with the brainstem. The brainstem can further divide into three parts. The very lower part called it medulla oblongata, and then pons, and then the midbrain. The medulla oblongata, in some cases we'll just call it medulla, has many similarity of the spinal cord. From the anatomy of this one, if you remember, the spinal cord is like this. In the center, there's a butterfly shape of the gray matter. But here in the oblongata, here there's no very something like this. There's no those neuron and a neural cell body no longer join together in the center. Rather, they scattered all around, forming a thing called nuclei. A nuclei is a joint a cluster of neuron cell body joined together, similar as the ganglia in the peripheral nervous system. In the central nervous system, this cluster called nucleus or nuclei as the plural form. And in the medulla oblongata, some of the nucleus we already mentioned before. For example, we mentioned in the autonomic nervous system, we mentioned this called dorsal respiratory group. This is the nucleus in the medulla oblongata, or just a medulla. And this is also part of a bigger center called respiratory control center. And in the medulla, there are multiple vital control center, which are part of the autonomic nervous system, and its function to sustain the very basic life sustaining function. One is the respiratory center, which by the name you can tell this is control the respiration of the lung. And then another one is called the cardiovascular center, which control the heart rate and the strength of the heartbeat. And this is actually, we also mentioned this in the autonomic nervous system, both receiving the information of the blood pH, blood oxygen levels from the carotid body. This is important. It won't be in the test, but in other tests, because this is very important information. And then next, now in here we focus on the third center called vasomotor center. The vasomotor center regulate the blood vessel diameter. It basically send out the information, mainly sympathetic nerves, to trigger the blood vessel contraction. And then this can be in response to many different sensations. For example, say low blood pressure. Low blood pressure will trigger blood vessel contraction and increase blood pressure. And low oxygen will also trigger this. Low oxygen also come from the carotid body. However, in these cases, there's something special. And the thing that's sensing low oxygen and low pH, called a chemoreceptor. And the chemoreceptor in the carotid body, called peripheral chemoreceptor, is outside the central nervous system. And in the central nervous system, it's actually in the medulla, there's also central chemoreceptor. And this central chemoreceptor exactly in the medulla, and is sensing the pH not in the blood but in the cerebral spinal fluid. And this is the strongest motivation stimulus to motivate the vasomotor center to contract blood vessel, to increase blood pressure, because to put more fresh CSF into the brain to support the brain function or survival. And also the medulla also have a lot of reflex that's very similar to the reflex in the spinal cord. And the medulla also made a lot of very important reflexes. And one is the swallowing reflex. This is basically how we can swallow. Swallow is a very special action in mammals. Not every animal can do the swallowing. The swallowing it's a series of actions that is patterning and or directed by the medulla. And also vomiting. Vomiting is done by a chemoreceptor trigger zone. This is the two nuclei here, a trigger receptor trigger zone, and when it senses anything, from many different things, not only the stomach or the mouth, sometimes even from the nose or even internal chemoreceptors. All of those can trigger this chemo trigger zone, and the chemo trigger zone triggered the vomiting center in the medulla to trigger the vomiting. This is a protective one. And even more thing is coughing. Coughing is very important protection mechanism that whenever there's a particles get into the lung in the respiratory tract, the body trigger the coughing to get the particle out of the respiratory tract to prevent the respiratory tract to be from being blocked. And in many senior people or people with stroke, they develop the impaired coughing reflex, and actually it's a common cause of death for the people because they cannot cough to get rid of the things, to get rid of blockage or the obstacles outside the respiratory tract. And moving on to up to the medulla, we have the pons. The pons in Latin means the bridge. The pons itself have a lot of nuclei, and many of the nuclei, and the thing is, once up the medulla, they do not have so many independent nuclei now. In the pons, many nuclei are similar. Let's draw this one again. This is the gray matter of the spinal cord. Here you have a lot of the second order sensory nuclei, and here you have a lot of the second order motor neurons here. And this kind of second order sensory neurons and the motor neuron also exist a lot in the pons, and those are related to cranial nerves. Cranial nerves, we mainly have 12 pairs of cranial nerves to sensing the upper facial movement, sensory, eye movement, hearing, and even sometimes like a vagus go as deep, going to the lung, to the heart, and even the intestine to regulate the internal autonomous processes. So these 12 pairs of cranial nerves, 10 out of these 12 coming out from the stem, the brainstem. Let me see, I forgot a number. I think 2 from midbrain, and maybe 4 from the pons and 4 from the medulla. I'm pretty sure 2 from the midbrain, but I'm not sure how many from the pons, how many from the medulla. Probably 4 and 4. So, but anyway, in the pons, most of those nuclei are actually associated with the cranial nerves. And for example, some of those are the facial sensing, the movement, etc. Yeah, let's move on. I forgot which one. And then let's move further on. Midbrain. Midbrain is an interesting thing because in some lower animals like fish, and not really lower, in fish and birds, midbrain is the largest one. In the fish and birds, midbrain are the most important, the primary center for vision processing, vision sensing, and vision processing, and particularly they call it vision directed action. For example, birds using the midbrain to navigate their flying, and fish use the midbrain to navigate their swimming. All of those use a lot of midbrain to process the information and direct the movement. In human, the vision processing is mainly taken over by the occipital lobe of the brain. However, in the midbrain, there's still some remaining. We have this called superior colicus. I'm not sure my spelling. Superior colicus. Actually, you have a inferior. Inferior is the hearing center. And again, in other animals, they are the primary hearing and the vision center. But in human, it has been squeezed. The majority of the vision processing is taken over by the cortex, the cerebral cortex. But still, here, the superior colicus, something like that. There's still some function there. It's also some important function. For example, the vision driven movement. What does it mean? Vision movement. For example, if you try to use a finger to follow some moving part outside. Sometimes in some cases, your brain, your cortex, your cerebral cortex does not, your consciousness does not really have to pay attention to this. Your eye can automatically driven. And it's more advanced in birds. You can see birds' head is already moving around to make sure that the eye, the eye is always following the targets. So this is the movement, the mediated by the midbrain, superior calicis. I need to double check my spelling. But anyway, so especially the eyeball movement. The eyeball movement is largely mediated by the midbrain. The midbrain has three, at least two somatic motor nuclei to direct eyeball movement, and also one sympathetic, parasympathetic nucleus to direct the eye, the pupil size. And some people, it's interesting that some people develop blindness because of the cerebral cortex diseases, the cortical blindness. And people with cortical blindness, the eye is still working, but they cannot process the vision because of something wrong with the core, something like physical impact that they hurt here, back to the optical lobe. They cannot have the way of see. They cannot perceive the thing by their conscious. But it is now the midbrain now take over the job. Then the midbrain, even though these people claim that they cannot really see things, but actually they can navigate by the midbrain to walk and avoid all of the obstacles. So this is called a blind vision, that mediated by midbrain. And it's interesting. Just imagine we take it for granted that vision is always a somatic sensation, but if there's a cortex damage there, the vision become autonomic vision, autonomic sensation, no longer somatic. And so that's a lot about the midbrain. Let's go up midbrain. That's the thalamus. Thalamus is normally we say is the relay center because the thalamus relay or the somatic sensation. Please pay attention. The somatic sensation, not a visual sensation. For example, the low pH in the blood, that is sensed by the carotid body, does not necessarily have to go through the thalamus. It go to the medulla, regulate the respiratory rate, and in some cases it's not very strong. That's it. It ends there. The thalamus relay all the somatic sensations except for the smell up to the cerebral cortex, going up, and also going down all the motor commands. Here there's no exceptions. All the motor commands from the cortex going down have to go through the thalamus. And the thalamus is basically a massive relay center, but also it's not a passive center. Relay means it's process information and sometimes even select the information to be passed to the cerebrals. And then let's focus on the motor commands. The motor commands before it's sent out, after the thymus, all of those motor commands, it's very precise motor commands. Basically, it is the order to say which specific muscle to contract and to what context, how much tension you need to give this muscle, and all of those detailed information. Just think about it. Yeah, you want like lift my pen. I know how to do this. I know how to lift my pen, but do I know which muscle to do what? Each single muscle in my finger to do what? To how much tension I can give to this each single tiny muscle fiber? No, I don't. I definitely do not know that. I can never know that. And this is all processed before the thalamus. That is let's call it basal ganglia. Basal ganglia is something. This is thalamus and something right above thalamus, the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia has many nucleus joined together. Some nucleus is based on the basal ganglia. Some of those is located deep in a lower deep in the cerebral. Some of those actually in the midbrain. There's a midbrain here. So okay, I forgot the name of it. I always forgot the name. Never mind. So all right, what's the function of the basal ganglia? To how call it code or planning, code or plan action. As I mentioned, our consciousness only give the order of what to do, what your purpose, final purpose, and it's up to the basal ganglia to plan this series of action to precisely tell each muscle fiber what to do. And here, the very first order given here, that's a striatum. This is the first station. Striatum has received all the order from the, we call it motor cortex. We are going to tell the motor cortex right now. Motor cortex give the order to the striatum. The striatum give order to multiple nuclei, which is not required here. So this is a complicated network. Eventually, everything now go to the thalamus, and thalamus give the order down to the muscles, and also give order back to the cortex. And it's here the one thing I want to talk particular is the basically substantia nigra. It means black matter, and this provide dopamine. Dopamine is very important here in all of those action coding or action planning system in the basal ganglia. And this is a nucleus in the midbrain. This is in the midbrain. And this provide all of those dopamine. Dopamine, what's the function of dopamine is that when you plan an action, a serious action, you not only need to motivate, need to initiate it or start a muscle contraction. You also need to know how to stop the muscle contraction. And dopamine is just a very important neurotransmitter to stop the muscle contraction. And people who has a degenerative disease in the midbrain affect the substantia nigra, their muscle cannot they cannot properly stop their muscle contraction, and then the disease called it Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease is the thing that the muscle contraction cannot be stopped properly. Yeah. Let's go to the biggest one. Next, we talk about the cerebral. The cerebral has a lot of foldings and I'm joining cerebral. I don't know. I know it's actually this called central sulcus. And this called lateral fissure. But anyway, the cerebral is divided into two, and here in the center they call it longitude fusion. I don't know. Anyway, so you have left hemisphere and right hemisphere, and the right and left hemisphere are largely the same, and probably they can can say replace each other. Probably, I don't know. But in each of the hemisphere, because due to the big sulcus or fissure, and they are divided into four major lobes. This is called frontal, this is called parietal, and this is occipital, and this is temporal. The frontal is the action center. All of those rest are mainly mainly responsible for sensation. Only the frontal lobe is mainly for action center. And here, this one, called it primary motor cortex. Primary motor cortex. This they call it primary because these region have directly in charge of give the direct order to the motor, and when they go to the here, go to the basal ganglia. So basal ganglia get a direct order from the primary motor cortex, and then before the primary cortex, this is called motor cortex association region, something like that, premotor cortex. This premotor cortex actually do a lot of the planning, the action, do the processing, eventually feed information to the cortex, to the primary cortex, and then very from this, call it prefrontal. This is very important because human, compared to all the other intelligence animals, including dolphins. Dolphins even have a larger cerebral and more neurons than human. But compared to all the other intelligent animals, human has a larger prefrontal cortex. And what does it mean? What does the prefrontal mean? What's the function of prefrontal reasoning? This the places for the higher cognition function happening here. Probably that's what make human. And then let's go back here. This right behind it, this central sulcus. This call it primary somatosensation cortex. These are the center that they receive all of those, directly receive the information from all the general sensation all around the body, for example, touching, pain, temperature, etc. And then behind this parietal lobe, those are associated. Those are the places that process the somatosensational information. And then occipital, this is the vision center. Also here, there's two parts. One part directly receives the vision information from the eye, and the rest of the parts before processing. And here, the temporal for auditory or hearing, auditory to process the hearing information. And right here, this is the language. This is the language information. And this is a language speech center who generate language. And this one is the hearing center that understand language. And then this is temporal. In the lab, I think we have a sheep brain you can dissect. You can open this up in the very center here, insular cortex. In some cases, some places even call it insular lobe. Insular is this called insular, or insular cortex. Insular cortex determine emotion. Interesting, they call emotion, and then emotion is not only determined by the insula. Behind insula, there's other places. And that's what we call it limbic system. Just we have talked about, this is the cerebral, this is the thalamus, and the spinal cord. And then this thing, the cortex is a concentration of a neural cell body in the center. And this cortex are thick, called a new cortex. New cortex have 6 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the thickest layer in the whole brain, and it's evolutionarily this is newly evolved. That's why I call it the new cortex. And in the new cortex, both 1 to 3 is mediated the interaction between other cortex. There's a lateral interaction. And then layer 4 is mainly receive signals. Layer 5 sending signals. Layer 6 modulation of signals. So this is a major function of the lateral, the new cortex. in context of the new cortex, here, what's lining in the internal surface of the cerebral, we call it allocortex. Allocortex compared to the neocortex is thinner. Mainly, it doesn't have the layer 2, and I think it doesn't have the layer 6. I'm not really sure. Definitely no layer 2. Probably no layer 6. And also, it variable a lot. In most cases, they have a variable. In some cases, they have only 1 layer or even two layers. In some places, even have 10 layers. But it's not complex as a new cortex. And in most cases, it has 3 layers. And it's less complicated and less powerful, especially without a layer 2 and 6. There's less interaction between lateral interaction and less modulation. It cannot do a high order cognition such as reasoning, but it has some other special functions. And the limbic system contain many things. Let's do this. And in the limbic system, I mentioned 3 of those, but let's focus on this one. That's a benefit to listen to my video. Actually, only hippocampus will be in the test because this is the most important thing. Hippocampus is somewhere here, the hippocampus here. And hippocampus, in some definition, is not even part of the cerebrum. It's in some definition, the limbic system is an independent part, including the thymus, the basal ganglia, and hippocampus. What's the function of hippocampus? Mainly function is the memory. And not every memory is for example, the skill memory or procedural memory, like how you can do a swimming, how you can, say, play basketball and biking. Those kind of memory actually last much longer. And you don't really have to refresh those kind of skip memory. And those memory are collectively formed by the prefrontal cortex, the frontal motor cortex, and the cerebellum. And that's not, the hippocampus almost have nothing to do with those kind of a skill memory. For what kind of memory? Another memory called emotion memory. Emotion memory is done by another thing at the end of those. Call it I don't even remember the name. Something, gada, something like that. Yeah, that's why we need a test. So this called emotion. What's the emotion memory? Something you don't want to remember, but this thing happened together with a strong emotional charge in your mind. For example, PTSD, or you remember things when you're really scared or really happy. Those kind of passive memory start here. Something with 8. So that's a nuclear stuff. Something with 8. But anyway, what's the hippocampus memory? It's mainly learning memory. That's the memory that acquired through learning, through the repeated in contact of the same thing. For example, the spatial memory. You remember the path. Remember how to find the path out of the maze, or remember how how your bedroom is decorated. The spatial memory and episodic memory. That's the memory of the events happening in daily. Something you may forget, something you remember. Actually, what daily you studied this class. And so you can remember. There's also episodic memory. And if you repeat it, read it several times, they eventually have changed the hippocampus in some way they can memorize for a long time. So that's because of this, hippocampus has been a focus of the research because it's very important for the learning memory, for the memory acquired through the learning process. And however, the hippocampus is also very, very fragile because for many reasons. I mentioned several of those. The hippocampus is vulnerable to stress. When people have a stress, the other part of the brain is also all fine, but hippocampus starts to do self-destruction because of stress, the hormone that's produced by the stress. And also, hippocampus has a weak blood-brain barrier. which make it much vulnerable to anything toxic in the brain. And what else? And one more thing is that the hippocampus is one of the few spaces in the brain that also has a neurogenesis. It generates new neurons. Normally in the brain, no neurons are generated, but hippocampus have new neurons. Altogether, it makes the hippocampus very vulnerable to damage. For example, Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative neural disease. When Alzheimer's disease happens, neurons die gradually in the brain. That's a hypothesis that is caused by accumulation of a toxic protein called amyloid in the protein, but it's still controversial. But anyway, when Alzheimer's happens, eventually the whole brain are damaged, and eventually people will die from it because when some vital functions not working anymore. But the very first sign of the Alzheimer's is that you cannot form new memory. That's the major function of the hippocampus. I tried to find it out, but didn't find a clear answer. To the best of my knowledge, the hippocampus mainly function is to form new memory instead of a memory storage. Even though in some sources and hippocampus can store memory, but people have done this that they remove hippocampus from one side and leave the other hippocampus stay still. There's barely no effect to the memory function. So in this case, it probably hippocampus again mainly functions to form a new memory. And then for the Alzheimer's patients, they still have the memory. Actually, some of the old memory become even fresher. However, they cannot form a new memory. So they can remember things happened 20 years ago, but they cannot remember things happened yesterday. But yeah, it depends. Some people gradually develop other symptoms. Even the old memory starts to fade away. That's a different story. And they also depends on again how and it's not always like this, and it probably the memory formation is not hippocampus is not the only thing to form this kind of new memory. Probably cerebellum, we'll talk about later, is also related for the form of new memory, because I just remember my father, who died 2 years, maybe only 3 years ago, because of long-term stroke. I remember. So actually, at the end of his days, he forgot me because I was not beside him. But actually, my mom kept taking care of him. He still always remember him. Oh, my mom. Somehow he asked my mom, "Do we have a son?" Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, let's talk about the last thing. Cerebellum. Yeah, cerebellum actually is a very interesting part of the brain. So it actually has 7 billion neurons in the cerebellum. In the whole cerebrum, actually, we only have 16 billion neurons. So cerebellum also have 80% of neurons in the whole brain. But however, what's the function of the cerebellum? The function of cerebellum is unclear so far. And the very solid information about cerebellum is that it's fine tuning of the motions. So without cerebellum, See, I can draw some smooth line here, but without cerebellum, the line like this, less smooth. And other than the fine-tuned motions, cerebellum is believed also involved in many other acting like emotion, and the memory, and many other things involved in cerebellum. But so far, we do not have a clear circuit to explain this. So it's so interesting that the part that have the largest number of neurons in the brain, we don't really know how they function. And another interesting is that people without cerebellum can survive. And many, they're not many, but some people, they were born without cerebellum, but they still survive. They have a delayed development of language, delayed development of working capability, but they survive. And none really survive. They can live a normal life. Not just survive. Some people marry, have a daughter. Some people graduate from college and get a job, live independently by themselves. They're all without cerebellum. So far, what's the function of cerebellum? We don't really know. And I think this is cerebellum, and I think I forgot one of those is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus only take a very tiny small portion of the brain, but hypothalamus, why I put it almost at the end of the whole schematic, because cerebellum itself is kind of comparable to the cerebrum. Cerebellum is the highest order of control center of the autonomic nervous system. And I try to find out if all autonomic processes are controlled by the hypothalamus, but I didn't get the exact answer. But so far as I can think that all of those autonomous processes are under control of the hypothalamus. In some cases, there's two-level controlling. For example, the respiration. Respiration is controlled as a respiration control center in the medulla. However, hypothalamus also, so here in the center, this respiratory center, and this center is receiving two orders. One is from cerebral, the other is from the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus can have same action of the cerebral control center. For now, now I can control my breathing to speak, all thanks to my cerebral control, somatic control of my motors. But think about it. What if I have just running, or I'm so scared by something, or I'm so sad, I'm crying? In these cases, even my cerebrum cannot really control my breath to have a nice control of my breathing to speak normally. And the thing that I cannot control is all under the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus has a strong control of the autonomic process that sometimes can even override the somatic control. That's why I'm keep saying that the hypothalamus is the highest order of control center. And another example is the energy balance. In the case, there's a satiety center. I'm not sure my spelling correct, and a feeding center, both existing in the hypothalamus. And then they have another thing, receive the signals. This is very complicated network of nuclei here, and receive signal. Leptin is the satiety signal, telling that you are full. And ghrelin, leptin is secreted by the adipocytes, ghrelin is secreted by the stomach. It's the hungry hormone. Both of us give signal to the brain, tell the brain to eat. And the satiety and the feeding center both located in the hypothalamus. And when the hypothalamus is activated, either this one or this one, they give the body stop eating or eat. And sometimes this feeding and satiety feeling is so strong. It's so strong that even our consciousness cannot overcome. And that's why, because the Ozempic this drug now is so powerful because this Ozempic can suppress the feeding center and activate this satiety center. And this why we need a drug, because this hypothalamus is at least as powerful in terms of control our body as the cerebrum. That's why there's one high center in the body. So that's I think that's all for this chapter of the brain. And good luck for the quiz. See you next time.